In today's world, where every step is under scrutiny and every decision seems to be made independently, the question arises, how truly free are we in our actions? That feeling of discomfort, a slight, nagging ache in the chest, that arises when confronted with contradiction or condemnation, what is it? It's not just a fleeting irritation, but an echo of something much deeper that many prefer not to confront directly. Each time there's a reaction to a comment, a look, or a gesture, something more than just an exchange of energy occurs. It's as if a part of oneself is torn away, and it happens imperceptibly. At first, one might even feel satisfaction from the response, as if something lost is being returned. But it's worth considering, is this need to react truly a sign of strength or a sign of weakness? By reacting, a person becomes dependent on circumstances, the actions of others, and the environment. It's tantamount to admitting, yes, what you did has such power over me that I am forced to defend myself, to prove my rightness. Have you noticed that every reaction, in essence, demonstrates another person's control over the situation? It's like invisible threads connecting you, allowing the other person to pull them whenever they please. And here's the main question, are you willing to continue dancing to someone else's tune, or is it time to recognize and break these shackles? Let's pause for a moment and consider the consequences of ceasing to react immediately to external stimuli. This isn't simply about ignoring or feigning indifference, but about a deeper process of taking control of one's own emotions, thoughts, and, ultimately, oneself. Before delving into this topic, it's important to realize that most people aren't inclined to such reflections. They consider it natural to react to what's happening, believing it to be a manifestation of human nature. And it's true, but human nature also implies susceptibility to weaknesses, impulsiveness, and concessions. Society is often interested in keeping individuals weak and reactive, subject to external influences. After all, while an individual is busy reacting, they have no resources left for creation and forward movement. Imagine a situation, a person is walking down a dark alley, and suddenly a stone falls near them. The natural reaction is to turn around in search of the culprit and take some action. But what happens if the person stops? If they decide not to move and not to turn around? It is this moment of stillness and resistance that distinguishes those who control the situation from those who are controlled. The person who threw the stone may not be trying to cause physical harm. Their goal is to provoke a reaction, to demonstrate their ability to control the actions of another person in this game of life. Paradoxically, the most harmful aspect of human reaction is its simplicity, accessibility, and predictability. An insult elicits a counter-insult, aggression elicits defense. However, each time an individual succumbs to this impulse, they inevitably plunge into a vicious cycle from which few manage to escape. True masters of fate, skillfully managing the course of events, never stoop to a banal reaction. They don't demonstrate vulnerability, because they understand a fundamental truth, reaction is an admission of the opponent's power. As a clear example, consider the outstanding personalities, the leaders, who have left an indelible mark on history. Did they waste their energy reacting to every critical arrow or insult? Not at all. Their greatness lay in understanding that true strength lies not in an automatic response, but in the ability to selectively determine the moment and form of action. It is this art that everyone must learn who realizes that their current behavior pattern isn't yielding the desired results. If the reader feels overly prone to reactions, that words, gestures, and external circumstances determine their emotional state, actions, and life path, then it's time for change. The saddest thing is that many people are convinced that there's no alternative to this state of affairs. However, it's worth shattering this established misconception, there's always a choice. It was given from the beginning, it's just not customary to say it aloud. Succumbing to impulsive reactions is the lot of those who are weak in spirit, while a proactive stance is the prerogative of strong personalities. But to act doesn't mean to automatically respond to external stimuli, it means to have power over one's feelings, thoughts, and perception of reality. And this state is achieved not through blind reaction, but through meticulous control. In this regard, it's suggested to think about the last time you had to react to something. Perhaps it was a minor episode, a comment thrown in passing, someone's glance that caused dislike. What feelings were raging then? Anger, resentment, an unbearable desire to respond, to prove something. This acute need, this urgency, is a sure sign of someone who has lost control of the situation, who has become a hostage to external circumstances. And before the desire to justify oneself arises, one should admit, there is no personal fault in this. From early childhood, society has imposed a stereotype about the need to fight back, to prove one's worth. It was instilled that a lack of reaction is a sign of weakness, that without protection one will inevitably be trampled. But this is just a lie designed to keep people in submission, because true strength lies not in an impulsive reaction, but in equanimity, patience, and comprehensive self-control. To gain inner strength and control over circumstances, it is necessary to develop a strategy of conscious response to external stimuli. In a moment of confrontation or aggression, instead of an immediate response, you should pause. It is necessary to stop, focus on breathing, and observe what is happening. When a person takes control of their impulses, a transformation occurs. They cease to be led and become the leader, cease to obey someone else's rhythm and begin to set their own. This is what distinguishes those who are ready to manage their lives from those who prefer to go with the flow. It is important to understand that not everyone is ready for such a change. Many continue to automatically react to external influences, remaining captive to their impulses. This is neither good nor bad, it's just that not everyone strives for total control over their destiny, preferring to delegate it to others. However, if a person strives for more, if they are ready to take their life into their own hands, then the first step on this path will be to abandon automatic reactions. This is not an easy task, requiring effort and self-discipline. The person will experience discomfort, a desire to protect themselves, to answer the offender, to prove their case. But if they can overcome this impulse, a transformation will occur in their inner world, which will open the way to a new, conscious life. And when this happens, there will be no return to the previous state. It is worth considering whether they want to continue to automatically respond to requests or are ready to gain true freedom. They are invited to carefully weigh this question, since it is not just about a minor adjustment of behavior, not about superficial advice, but about a fundamental transformation of their thinking. Society has long accustomed us to reacting, instilling that this is something natural, human, and necessary for survival. But is this really the case, or is it just an illusion that we have accepted because it is easier to come to terms with the inability to control what is happening? They should stop and reflect. What do they get when they react to external stimuli? Perhaps, in the moment, they experience short-term relief, fleeting satisfaction. Perhaps it seems to them that they have won a victory, earned respect, or restored justice. But what happens then? What remains in the end? Only emptiness. After all, reaction does not create, does not transform, and does not create anything new. It only absorbs energy, time, and attention. This is a real emotional vortex, drawing all resources into itself. In the cycle of life, when offenders continue on their way, and the events that caused the storm of emotions fade from memory, a person risks getting stuck in the captivity of the past. They relive the painful moment again and again, look for excuses for their actions, get bogged down in the abyss of self-analysis, depleting their emotional resources. But who triumphs when a person succumbs to impulse and reacts? Definitely not themselves. The victory is won by the offender or, even more sadly, by a faceless system interested in the person being distracted and emotionally exhausted. After all, someone who constantly reacts is deprived of the opportunity to think, ask questions, and create. The truth, which many prefer to ignore, is that calmness is power, silence is strength, and strategic inaction, a conscious choice of time and method of action, is the pinnacle of self-control. However, this should not be confused with a manifestation of weakness or a refusal to fight. On the contrary, it requires colossal inner strength, which few possess. Why are people prone to react sharply to external stimuli? The reason lies in the deep-seated instincts of self-preservation, inherited from ancestors. The brain, perceiving the situation as a threat, instinctively encourages an immediate response, as if survival depends on it. However, it is worth realizing that this mechanism, designed to protect against predators in the wild, today often manifests itself in completely different situations, in a violent reaction to a harmless comment on the internet, to a random insult on the street, or to criticism from an insignificant person. The human mind has evolved to ensure survival, but does not always contribute to prosperity. The task is to recalibrate, to learn to control impulsive reactions. The next time someone tries to provoke you, refrain from responding. Not out of a sense of superiority or a desire to prove something, but out of self-respect. By reacting, you prioritize the other person, allowing them to control your emotional state, wasting your energy on them. The question arises, who deserves such influence? Reaction is not only a response to the external world but also a reflection of an internal state, a struggle against self-destructive thoughts and insecurity. The inner critic, whispering about inadequacy and the need to prove something, is often the main cause of impulsive actions. The paradox is that these voices are usually not your own but a collection of other people's opinions and attitudes, learned from the surrounding world and mistakenly taken as your own. True freedom is not just stopping automatic responses to external stimuli but also getting rid of the internal limitations that shackle the personality. It is the ability to look in the mirror and confidently declare, I am not obliged to prove anything to anyone, I do not need to justify my actions, I do not need to demonstrate my importance to others or even to myself. After all, a person's value is not determined by their achievements or reactions to what is happening, it is an inherent attribute. The final test on the path to freedom is silence. Not the external absence of sounds, but the internal stillness, which is often frightening in its unknownness. In the absence of the usual noise, we are forced to face ourselves, our deepest fears, innermost desires, and gaping voids. This is the real battlefield, which unfolds not in the external world, but within each of us. And if a person learns to win in this inner struggle, no one and nothing will be able to control them anymore. Therefore, the question arises again, is a person ready to continue drifting, reacting to external circumstances, or are they ready to meet themselves in order to gain absolute control over their life? If the choice is made in favor of freedom, you should prepare for a difficult path, requiring considerable strength, patience, and, above all, unyielding will. However, as experience shows, this struggle is worth the effort, because at stake is the acquisition of true freedom and inner harmony. If the reader has reached this point, then something in their inner world has resonated with the author's words. This indicates that they are closer than ever to establishing comprehensive control over their own destiny. However, this is not the final point, but rather marks the starting line of a new stage.